Welcome back to Adventures in Randomia, an animated D&D solo adventure. This is episode 4, in which Freya and Clarissa, joined by Maeldros, head into the mysterious ruined castle to uncover the secret of the ancient artifact. I hope you enjoy, and please do drop me a line with any questions, comments or tips from your own experience. Last time, Freya and Clarissa continued heading north after their narrow defeat of the villainous rogue Lyra. They are soon caught up in a further battle when Freya tries out her prospecting on an ice method. They are then woken from their overnight rest in a cave by Maeldros, who has recovered from his attack and followed them. Despite the evidence of a letter from him to Lyra, he denies any recent involvement with her, and says he is pleased that she is dead. We join the party the next morning as they prepare to head into the ruined castle. Next day, Clarissa is awakened by rustling sounds and faint exclaims of "Ach!" and "Where is it?" from Maeldros. She opens her eyes to see him furtively searching through their backpacks. "Maeldros!" she cries. "What are you doing with our bags?" At this, Freya also wakes up. "What? What's going on?" Oh, nothing to worry about, ladies. I was just wondering whether you had found a little silver key after your battle with Lyra. "Yeah, we did, actually," says Freya, "and it's here in my pocket." She pats the breast pocket of her coat. Good, says Maeldros. "Can I have it back, please? She stole it from me." Freya gives him a hard stare. "No, Maeldros. I think I'll just keep it here in my pocket for safekeeping." "Oh," says Maeldros. Okay. Yes, this is good, as long as you have the key." Clarissa squints at Maeldros as she scrutinises him suspiciously. "Oh, look, ladies, what I've brought you." He rummages in his own pack and brings out a rustling paper bag. He pulls out 2 apple strudels for each of them and passes them over, and then he bites into a large one himself. "Delicious apple strudels for breakfast from the chef at the tavern." "Thanks, Maeldros," says Freya curtly. They all sit silently in the cave and munch their apple strudels. Then Freya says, "You know, I feel a bit different this morning, like a bit older and wiser and more experienced." "Yes, I know what you mean," says Clarissa. "I feel it too." Sure enough, the two of them had gained a level of experience after their previous day of adventuring and are now level 2. They finish up their strudels, pack up their gear and head out of the cave. They emerge from the cave to a much less spring-like day than the previous one. For our weather check, we roll a 5. The sky is overcast with heavy clouds and there is a light, steady snowfall. They head down the path from the cave back towards the main track. There is an eerie silence surrounding them as they make their way through the swirling snowflakes. The only sound is their boots making a squeaky scrunching sound in the freshly fallen snow. Freya takes the lead, with Clarissa following and then Maeldros bringing up the rear. They continue heading north, hoping to find the castle soon. Before long, we reach the start of the next hex, so we roll on our Arctic terrain table and we get a 73. So this is a waterway, probably frozen. Then we make a navigation check. Freya rolls a 17 for survival. It's getting more difficult to see the track, but Freya manages to keep spotting the wooden markers poking out of the snow. Before long, they spot the silhouette of the ruined castle through the flurry of snowflakes. It is surrounded by a large frozen lake, with thick layers of ice covering the surface. As the adventurers approach the old ruined castle, they see a desolate and eerie sight before them. The castle's once proud towers now lean precariously to one side, and the turrets are crumbling, with chunks of stone littering the ground. They see there is more extensive damage on the western side, where the large sections have been blasted away, leaving a ruin with deep fissures and shattered stones. The icy wind whips across the lake, sending snow and ice crystals swirling around the castle's towers. The sky above is steely grey, and the clouds hang low, casting the landscape in a gloomy, foreboding light. They carefully make their way out onto the ice of the frozen lake. So we make an athletics check for each of them to find out whether they successfully cross the ice. Freya rolls a 24, so she has no problem in traversing the ice. Clarissa rolls a 12, so Clarissa's a bit unsteady, but her cat's claws give her extra grip and she manages to stay upright. Maeldros rolls a 5. He is slipping and sliding all over the place and falls over a couple of times, sustaining a point of damage. They reach the castle walls and see that the main entrance is a set of massive double doors reinforced with thick iron bands. So we make a check to discover, are the main gates open? We roll a 9, so they're not, but there's a but. The gates are closed, however the wood is so rotten and split that it shouldn't be hard to get through. Before we head into the castle, I want to explain a bit about how I created it. I used the random dungeon generator in Chapter 8 of the Solo Adventurer's Toolbox. To keep the dungeon in the shape of the castle, I assumed there's a central courtyard with various exits off of it. I then rolled for how many exits and I got a 7. As the castle is ruined, I also rolled an additional check for each room to see if it is intact or not. So let's get back to our adventurers. We roll a strength check for Freya and she gets a 13. She raises her great axe high and hacks it down repeatedly into the wooden door. The wood splinters and cracks with ease, and they're able to make their way through the gap into the courtyard. Then we roll on the room contents table to find out if there's anything in the main courtyard, and we roll a 22, which is a hard encounter. As Freya breaks through the door, they hear a shouting and a shrieking from within. They emerge into a large stone courtyard, which is littered with rubble and large lumps of stone and fallen masonry. There are 4 frost goblins standing around a campfire in the centre of the courtyard. 3 of them appear to be warriors, wielding short bows and swords. A larger one standing behind the fire is carrying a staff. This appears to be their camp, and they have a small boar roasting on a spit by the fire. As the adventurers enter, the goblins start waving their weapons and jeering, but they're also clearly scared. Freya steps forward and readies her great axe. "Wait," says Clarissa. "Do we need to fight them? We just want to find this artifact, right, my Eldros?" Clarissa rolls an insight check and gets a 7. She peers at the group, but being unfamiliar with goblins, can't tell their intentions. "Well, yes, you're right," says Meldros, "but having goblins hanging about are a bit of a complication." "Yes," says Freya, "I don't want them jibber-jabbering around us while we try and search the castle." So let's find out what the goblins do. We roll on the monster intentions table, and we get a 79. So this is the monster views this area as its territory and you as the challenger. The goblins clearly view this as an attack on their home camp, and they're going to fight to defend it. So we roll for initiative as the battle commences. The first warrior standing in front of the fire takes initiative and looses off an arrow with his short bow at Freya. It sings through the air and hits her in the shoulder. She gasps and staggers for a moment. "You little bugger, I'll get you for that!" she shouts, and she rushes into the courtyard as fast as her short, stout legs will carry her. She hurls her hand axe at the first goblin who shot at her. It spins as it flies through the air and hits the goblin in the side of his chest. She then hurls her second axe at the other goblin warrior who is swinging his sword and sizing her up. Again she hits and does 5 damage. The second warrior then shoots his bow at Freya and makes a successful attack. The arrow whizzes through the air and hits Freya in the knee. "No, not an arrow to the knee," she cries. Seeing that Freya is already quite wounded, Clarissa uses her feline agility to scamper quickly forward to within range of the goblins. She clasps her divine focus, which hangs on a chain around her neck, and casts Radiance of the Dawn on the four. A brilliant light emanates from her, doing radiant damage on the group. The shaman and one of the warriors are successful on their constitution save, so they take only half damage. Maeldros then moves forward to the cover of a large boulder on the left-hand side of the courtyard. He tries to cast Witch Bolt on the shaman, but fails with a roll of a natural 1. "Ah, damn it," he says under his breath, as sparks of lightning fizzle around his hand. He shakes his hand as if he has hurt it. Clarissa notices this and whispers, "Are you okay?" But he pretends not to hear her. The third goblin warrior, standing behind the fire, then shoots his short bow at Freya. Again the arrow whizzes through the air and hits her, piercing her in her left arm. The goblin shaman then moves to the side of the courtyard for some cover. He holds up his staff and casts Frostbite on Freya. The icy blast hits her and she fails the con save, so she takes a point of damage and is then disadvantaged on her next weapon attack. The first warrior shoots his arrow again at Freya but misses. He then runs behind a large boulder and attempts to hide. He rolls a stealth check of 4, so he's clearly still visible to everyone as he crouches, quivering behind the boulder. Freya rushes forward to the second warrior still standing by the fire. She slashes at him with her great axe, and even with the disadvantage, she still manages to hit him and does more than enough damage to down him. Clarissa sneaks around the other side of the rock where the first warrior is trying to hide. She casts Sacred Flame for 1 damage. The goblin is successful at its dex saving throw and manages to dodge the golden flames. Maeldros now tries to cast Firebolt, but he again fails the attack. He glances over at Clarissa to see if she notices quite how bad his spellcasting is. The third warrior shoots an arrow again at Freya from the side of the courtyard, but this time he misses. He runs towards the back of the courtyard and tries to hide. He casts a stealth of 22, so he's now stealth hiding behind a large boulder. The shaman then casts Ray of Frost at Freya. The icy beam streaks towards her and hits her for 1 damage. The icy chill also stiffens her limbs and slows her speed. The shaman backs further into the corner of the courtyard. The first warrior then appears from behind the boulder and shoots an arrow at Clarissa. It hits her in the shoulder. It then dodges back behind the boulder and tries to hide again. It again fails the stealth check and is clearly visible to Clarissa. With the chill slowing her limbs, Freya knows there's no way that she can reach the shaman on this turn. She picks up her hand axe from the dead goblin's body in front of her. She then spots her second axe on the other side of the campfire and has just enough movement to be able to reach it. She hurls each hand axe in turn at the shaman. Both axes hit, thunking into the shaman's chest. He starts to stagger and sway, clearly quite wounded by now. Clarissa again attacks the goblin hiding behind the boulder. She casts Sacred Flame for 8 damage. This time the goblin fails the dexterity throw. The golden flames engulf him and he slumps to the floor. Maeldros then comes out from his cover and moves up closer to Freya by the fire. He casts Firebolt at the shaman and finally this time his attack hits and does some damage. The third warrior shoots from his hidden position, but even with the advantage he still misses and also gives away his position. He runs back into the far corner of the courtyard. The shaman, now standing in the other corner of the courtyard, tries to cast Ray of Frost again at Freya, but this time fails. Clarissa then comes out into the open to approach the shaman. She casts Sacred Flame for 4 damage. In his wounded state, he fails to dodge, and the golden flames dance around him and fatally wound him. Maeldros then casts Firebolt on the final remaining goblin. The ball of fire streaks across the courtyard and hits the goblin square in the chest. This final goblin is badly wounded now. He runs into a passage leading off the courtyard in the far right back corner. The 3 of them hear a shrieking of fear as the final goblin runs away. Then they hear a scream fading to the distance and then a crash and a thud. They all run over to the corner of the courtyard. We roll the dice on the door table and we get a 2, which is an unlocked wooden door opening into a passage. We then roll on the passage contents table and we get a 37, which means the passage is empty. The 3 of them pass through the simple wooden door, which now stands open, into the dark shadows of the empty passage and look for what's happened to the goblin. We then roll on the passage table and we get a 17. So this means the passage turns to the left and then proceeds to a set of stairs. I'm also going to roll a d4 to check whether this passage is ruined or intact. And we roll a 1, which means this passage has been destroyed. The 3 of them proceed down the passage and take the left turn, and then stop abruptly as it drops away into nothingness. They peer down into the darkness and can just make out the body of the goblin lying crumpled in a pit about 20 foot deep, where the stone floor of the passage has crumbled away, leaving a 10-foot gap across the passage. Wait, wait, says Maeldros, looking around and peering over the far side of the passage. This is it, he cries. What is it? Says Freya. This is the passage to my old teacher's study. I remember him telling me that his study was in the northeastern tower. This must be it. Quick, quick, the artifact must be up in his room. What do you mean, quick, quick, says Freya. There's a bloody great hole here. We're supposed to grow wings or something. Well, I might be able to jump it, says Clarissa, but I don't think either of you two could. No, look, it is fine, says Maeldros. There is a narrow ledge along the side that we can traverse along. Hold on, says Clarissa. Shouldn't we rest up for a bit? Freya, you're quite wounded. We have no idea what may be up there. Could be more goblins, or worse. Yeah, okay, says Freya, and we forgot to search the courtyard for loot. Let's go back. They all return to the courtyard and search for any loot or other interesting items on the goblins. So we roll on the appropriate loot table. For the first goblin warrior, we roll a 6, which means they find 6 platinum coins. For the second goblin warrior, they roll a 5, so that is 9 gold coins. Then they search the goblin shaman, and they roll a 3, which gives them 13 gold coins. Clarissa rolls a natural 20 for investigation. As she searches the body of the shaman, she finds a large iron key on a leather thong around his neck. Oh look, she says, I wonder what's this for? Ah, that is of no importance. We already have the key for the artifact, says Maeldros. Well, it could be the key to an old treasure chest. Let's have a look at that, Clarissa. The 2 of them scrutinise the key as they have their short rest sitting in the courtyard. After their short rest, they have all regained their hit points. They return to the collapsed passage. They rope themselves together and take turns to traverse the ledge. We roll a dexterity check for each of them, and they all pass. So they all manage to make their way along the narrow ledge and onto the other side of the passage. We roll on the stairs table and we get a 16. So the stairs lead up one level to a room where we need to add 30 to the contents table. We also roll a d4 to check whether the room is intact or ruined, and we roll a 4, so yes, the room is intact. They proceed up the stone stairs and emerge into a large, mostly intact room on the first floor of the building. Then we roll on the room contents table, we get an 85, then we need to add the 30 from the previous roll, and this is a significant boss or NPC encounter. "Ah, yes, I knew it. This is my old teacher's study," says Maeldros with excitement. They look around the room and see some pieces of broken furniture. There's an old desk, some bookshelves and a chaise longue, and also a rather tattered carpet on the floor. Freya then spots a large chest in the corner and heads towards it. The rug on the floor immediately rears up and tries to envelop her, but its attack roll fails, and Freya manages to leap out of the way. "What the heck is this?" she says. It seems the old wizard has left a magical rug of smothering in order to protect his room. So we roll for initiative, and Freya gets the first attack. Freya swings her great axe at the flailing rug, but fails to hit. She gets her feet tangled up and trips as she swings at it. The rug then lunges towards Maeldros and tries to envelop him. Its attack succeeds. The rug wraps itself around Maeldros, who can then be heard swearing and struggling inside in a muffled voice.
"Help! Help! Get this darn thing off me!"
Clarissa casts Sacred Flame for 8 damage. Incredibly, the rug nimbly jumps aside whilst still smothering Maeldros. We can hear him oof and arg as the rug drags him around with its movement. The rug then squeezes Maeldros tightly and he takes 7 damage. He struggles and tries to break free of it. Freya tries to help by pulling at the rug. He rolls a 13 and a 19 with advantage, so he manages to escape. "Ach, my God," says Maeldros. "I could barely breathe in there." Freya swings again at the rug with her great axe, but again her roll fails. The rug then whirls around and lunges towards Clarissa, but it just fails to catch hold of her. Clarissa holds up her divine focus and casts Radiance of the Dawn. She blasts the rug with her radiant light, and it shudders in the brilliance, the weaving starting to unravel at the edges. Maeldros then uses his Dragon Breath attack and sets the rug on fire. As the flames start to leap up from the rug, Clarissa says, "Is that wise, to set it on fire in a contained space like this?" "Well," says Maeldros, "it's the one thing I can do really well." Freya swings her great axe again, and this time it tears right through the rug, ripping it to shreds. It slumps onto the floor. She then stomps on the burning remains of the now inanimate rug with her heavy boots, putting the fire out. As the commotion from the battle with the rug subsides, they stand looking around the room. So we've already found out that this room contains an encounter with a significant NPC. So this is going to be an important part of our story. So I'm going to roll on the Q&A oracle table to ask the question, is the old wizard's ghost here? We roll a d20 and get 17. So yes, it is. A great rattling and roaring sound starts to shake the room. From the ceiling, the ghostly form of the wizard teacher descends into the room, pointing an accusing finger at Maeldros. "You, Maeldros, you were the cause of my death." "No, no, it is not true," cries Maeldros. And there we shall leave our adventurers, staring in amazement at the scene that is unfolding in front of them. Tune in next time to find out the truth behind the death of the wizard, as well as the mystery of the ancient artifact.